The night was colder than usual. The wind howled outside the small wooden cabin, making the walls shake as if the darkness itself wanted to come inside. Inside, one man sat alone near a dim fire. His name was Daniel. He was used to silence, used to being alone, but that night he felt something strange in the air. It was the kind of silence that carried warning, the kind of silence that made the heart beat faster without reason. Daniel had lived far from people for many years. After the last war, he wanted nothing to do with anyone. His cabin was simple: an old bed, a broken table, and a fire that kept him alive through the long winters. He thought he was safe out here, far from the noise of men and machines. But safety is only an illusion, and that night proved it. It started with a sound, not the wind, not the crack of trees in the forest. This was different. A low cry, almost like the whimper of a child, carried through the storm. Daniel stood still, listening. At first he thought he imagined it. But then the sound came again, weak, trembling, desperate. His first thought was an animal, maybe a wounded deer. But his heart told him it was something else. He grabbed his old rifle and opened the door. The cold slapped his face as snow blew inside. He stepped out, his boots sinking deep. The cry came again. He followed the sound, each step heavy, his breath rising like smoke. His eyes searched the darkness until he saw a figure near the trees. At first he froze. It was not human. The figure was tall but thin, almost fragile, with pale skin that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Her arms held something close to her chest, a small shape, smaller than a child. Her legs shook and she looked ready to fall at any moment. Daniel raised his rifle. "Stay back," he called, though his voice shook. The figure lifted her face. Her eyes were large, black, and filled with pain. She looked at him not with anger, not with hate, but with a kind of sorrow he had never seen before. Her voice was soft, broken, and carried words that cut deep into his soul. "If I warm your bed, will you let us remain?" Daniel's finger froze on the trigger. He had heard many things in war, but never such a plea. He looked again and saw what she held. It was a child, small and fragile, with strange marks on its skin, shivering violently in the cold. The child coughed weakly, almost too weak to breathe. For a long moment, Daniel did not move. His mind screamed at him, "This is not human. This is danger, turn away." But his heart remembered another night years ago, when his own family had needed help and no one came. The memory stung him like fire. The alien woman stumbled forward, her legs failing. Snow clung to her thin body, her lips trembling. She was not strong. She was not a monster. She was simply a mother trying to save her child. Daniel lowered his rifle. "Come," he said at last, though his voice was low and unsure. He moved back into the cabin, leaving the door open. She stepped inside slowly, carefully, as if afraid he would change his mind. The warmth of the fire hit her skin, and she let out a breath of relief. She laid her child near the fire, wrapping it in her arms. The child's skin stopped shaking little by little, though its breathing was still weak. Daniel shut the door against the storm. He watched them carefully, every nerve in his body alert. This was madness, he told himself. A stranger, not even human, now sat inside his cabin, and yet deep down he knew he could not have done otherwise. The alien mother lifted her head. Her eyes met his again, and this time he saw gratitude. She whispered something in her strange tongue, then switched back to broken human words. "Safe. For now." Daniel sat on his chair, his rifle still close. He studied them in the firelight. Their skin was strange, their clothes torn and wet. He noticed scars on the mother's arms, as if she had been hunted, chased, maybe even enslaved. She was exhausted, but she kept her arms tight around the child, as if her life meant nothing compared to his. The silence stretched between them. Outside, the storm grew stronger, the wind screaming across the cabin walls. Daniel wondered if the sound he heard earlier had been only her voice, or something else out there searching for her. His gut twisted. He had not just opened his door to strangers. He had opened it to a story much larger, a danger much greater than his lonely life had ever known. And though the night was still long, Daniel knew one thing: nothing would be the same after this. The fire burned low, filling the cabin with a faint glow. Daniel sat in his chair, his rifle resting against his knee. Across from him, the strange mother cradled her child, rocking gently as if the storm outside did not exist. But Daniel could not ignore it. The storm, the silence between them, and the question pounding in his mind. What are they? And why are they here? The child's breathing was rough, a rasp that pulled at Daniel's chest. The mother whispered words in a language he could not understand, pressing her forehead against the child's. Sometimes the child whimpered, sometimes coughed, but the mother never stopped holding him close. Daniel cleared his throat. His voice sounded strange, heavy in the small cabin. "Who are you?" The mother lifted her eyes. Her black pupils caught the firelight, reflecting it like dark glass. For a moment she did not answer. Then slowly, with broken human words, she spoke. "Run. Hide. Hunters come." The words chilled Daniel more than the storm outside. Hunters? Who was hunting them? He leaned forward, his jaw tight. Hunters? Who? She struggled to form the words as if every sound cost her strength. Men? Machines? They find us. Kill. No mercy. Daniel's heart beat faster. The way she said it was not vague fear, it was memory. She had seen it happen, maybe too many times. He thought about the scars on her arms, the way she shook in the cold and the way she begged at his door. The child let out a soft cry. The mother rocked him harder, murmuring in her own tongue. Daniel stood up, grabbed a pot, and poured some water to warm over the fire. He didn't know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was guilt. When he offered it, the mother looked at him as if surprised. She dipped her fingers, touched them to the child's lips. The boy drank weakly. Relief softened her face, but only for a moment. Daniel returned to his chair, his mind heavy. He should be throwing them out, he told himself. They were strangers, not even human. They would bring danger to his door. But something about the child, too small, too weak, would not let him act cruel. Finally, he spoke again. "Why here? Why my cabin?" Her voice trembled. "We walked long. Snow dark. Almost die. Then, light." She pointed at the small fire. Hope. Daniel stared at the flames. They had followed a simple light through the storm. That was all. If they had not seen his fire, they would already be dead. But another question ate at him. "Why are they hunting you?" The mother hesitated. He saw her lips tremble, her eyes flicker. She did not want to answer. But at last she whispered, "We escape. We not belong to them. Escape." The word hit hard. Escape from what? A prison? A camp? Or something worse? Daniel's mind returned to the war years. He remembered prisoners' chains, cries for mercy. He remembered turning his back because he could do nothing. The weight of those memories pressed on him now. The cabin creaked as the wind pushed against it. Snow tapped the windows like fingers. Daniel felt the weight of the night pressing closer, like something outside was listening. He lowered his voice. "How many of you?" The mother's eyes dropped. Her arms tightened around the child. "Many. Once now. Few." Her meaning was clear. They were almost gone. Hunted, killed, erased. Daniel rubbed his hand over his face. He didn't want to care. He didn't want to be part of this. But the truth was already clear. The moment he let them inside, he had chosen a side. The fire cracked, throwing sparks. The child stirred and looked at Daniel for the first time. His eyes were not black like his mother's. They were lighter, almost silver, glowing faintly in the dark. For a second, Daniel's breath caught. There was something innocent, almost human in those eyes. The boy reached out a small hand, weak but curious. Daniel hesitated, then let the hand touch his rough fingers. Warmth spread through him, a strange mix of fear and something he had long forgotten. Belonging. The mother watched silently, her gaze heavy. She did not speak, but her eyes said everything. "Thank you. Please don't betray us." Daniel pulled his hand back, uneasy. He stood and checked the door, making sure it was barred tight. The storm was loud, but beneath it he thought he heard something else. A distant hum. A low thrum that did not belong to nature engines. He froze. His pulse quickened. He knew that sound from the war. Machines searching the land. Machines that did not rest. He turned back to the mother. She had heard it too. Her face went pale. She pulled her child close, whispering fast, desperate words. Daniel gripped his rifle. His quiet life was over. He didn't need her to explain more. The hunters were real and they were close. He looked at her once more, and in her eyes he saw both terror and hope. She had brought danger into his cabin, yes, but she had also brought something else. A chance to be human again. The truth was clear now. If he sent them out, they would die. If he kept them in, hunters would come for him too. Either way, the cold night was only the beginning. The storm did not hide the sound anymore. Daniel stood by the window, staring into the dark forest. The faint hum was growing louder, steady and mechanical, like a beast of iron moving through the snow. The mother already knew. She pressed her child tighter against her chest, rocking back and forth in silent panic. Her lips moved with quiet words Daniel could not understand, but he knew it was a prayer, or maybe a goodbye. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle. He had not fought in years, not since the war ended, but the rhythm of fear and survival was returning to his blood. He moved quietly through the cabin, checking the locks, making sure the fire burned low so the smoke did not give them away. But it was useless. The hunters were already close. Through the crack in the wooden wall, Daniel saw shadows moving. Dark shapes, tall and rigid, with glowing eyes scanning the snow. Machines, cold, merciless machines. They glided across the ground, leaving no tracks, their lights cutting through the storm like knives. And behind them, darker figures walked slowly, men or something close to men, covered in armor that shimmered with frost. Their helmets had no faces, only black glass. The sight made Daniel's stomach twist. These were not soldiers. These were executioners. The mother's voice broke the silence. They find us. Always. Daniel turned sharply. If they know you're here, they'll kill us all. Her eyes met his, desperate but calm. If you give us, maybe they let you live. The word stung. She was giving him a choice. He could survive by betraying her and the child. But something deep inside Daniel rebelled at the thought. He had seen too much betrayal in his life already. The sound grew louder. Heavy steps crunched outside the cabin. Snow fell from the roof as shadows blocked the moonlight. A cold metallic voice echoed through the storm. Scan complete. Heat signatures inside open. Daniel's heart raced. The hunters knew. They were at his door. The mother stood trembling. She held her child close and whispered, "Please." Not for me. For him. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at the small boy's silver eyes, wide with fear. Something in that gaze cut through his doubt. He made his choice. He raised his rifle and cocked it. "Stay behind me." The first bang shook the door. Then another. The hunters were breaking in. Wood splintered, iron hinges screamed. Daniel raised his weapon, his breath steady despite the pounding in his chest. The door cracked open and cold light spilled into the cabin. The first machine pushed through. It was taller than a man, with metal limbs and a face like a skull. Its glowing eyes locked on Daniel. A cold, empty voice followed. "Target detected. Eliminate." Daniel fired. The rifle roared, the bullet striking the machine's head. Sparks flew, and the skull face twisted before collapsing to the floor. Smoke rose from its shattered eye. The silence lasted only 1 second. Then the others came. More machines, more armored figures pushing through the storm and into his home. The cabin shook under their weight. The child screamed. The mother pressed against the far wall, shielding him. Daniel fired again, hitting another in the chest. But they were too many. Too strong. His rifle would not last long. One of the armored men stepped forward, raising a weapon unlike anything Daniel had seen. It glowed with blue light, humming with deadly power. Daniel ducked as a beam cut through the air, slicing his wooden table in half. Fire licked up the edges where the shot landed, filling the cabin with smoke. He rolled behind the broken table, reloading with shaking hands. His breath came fast. He had chosen to fight, but he knew. This was a battle he could not win alone. And then, something happened. The mother, eyes wide with terror, raised her hand. Her skin glowed faintly, veins pulsing with silver light. A strange energy rippled from her fingers. The air itself seemed to bend. The nearest machine froze mid-step. Its glowing eyes flickered. Sparks burst from its chest before it collapsed to the ground. Daniel stared. She had power. She was not helpless after all, but using it cost her. She stumbled, nearly falling with the child in her arms. Sweat covered her forehead, her breathing sharp and uneven. Daniel fired again, covering her. "Stay down," he shouted. The hunters pressed harder, their voices cold and mechanical. Resistance detected. Terminate all. The storm outside screamed louder, as if the world itself was watching the cabin's fate. Daniel reloaded again, his last few bullets in hand. His chest burned with exhaustion, but he stood tall. He looked at the alien mother, then at the child, then at the door where shadows kept pouring in. This was no longer about survival. This was about a promise, unspoken but clear. He would not hand them over. Not tonight. A machine lunged forward, its claw raised. Daniel pulled the trigger. The shot echoed, fire lit the room, and the hunter fell. But more were coming. The cabin would not last. Daniel knew it. The walls shook, the roof cracked. The hunters would burn it all down if they had to. And as the smoke rose and the battle raged, one thought cut through Daniel's mind. This was only the beginning. The cabin stank of smoke and iron. The fire was nearly dead, only glowing coals left. Pieces of broken wood and metal lay scattered across the floor. One of the machines still twitched where Daniel had shot it, its glowing eyes fading like dying stars. Daniel's chest heaved as he leaned against the wall, rifle in hand. His arms trembled from firing, his ears rang from the blasts. He had survived the first attack, but he knew it was not over. Outside, the storm howled louder. But mixed with the wind was another sound, the cold march of hunters circling the cabin. They were patient. They would not rush. They knew he was trapped inside. The alien mother sat on the floor, holding her child close. She had pulled the boy under her torn cloak, whispering into his ear to calm him. Her face was pale, her body weak. The silver glow she had used against the machine was gone, leaving her drained. Daniel looked at them. A mother and child, weak, tired, terrified. They had no strength left. If he chose to fight again, he would be fighting for them, not for himself. His rifle was nearly empty. His cabin was broken. His chances were nothing. And still he could hear his father's voice from long ago in the middle of war. Every man faces the choice. Save yourself, or save another. The door shook. A heavy thud against the wood. Then a voice, cold, metallic, echoing like steel. Human inside. We know you shelter them. Surrender the fugitives. Do this and you live. Daniel's throat tightened. The hunters were offering him a way out. He could open the door, push the woman and child outside, and live. They would take her, take the boy, and maybe he would never see them again. His hand clenched around the rifle. His breath came hard. The offer was tempting, so cruelly tempting. He had lived alone for years, hiding from the world. Why should he throw away his life for strangers not even human? The mother looked up at him, her black eyes shining in the firelight. She must have understood the words because her lips trembled as she whispered, "If you give us, maybe you live. Please, do not lie." Tell me. Her honesty pierced him. She was ready for death. She only cared about her child. The boy stirred in her arms, coughing softly. Then his small silver eyes blinked open. He looked at Daniel, not with fear but with quiet trust, as if he somehow believed Daniel would not betray them. That look crushed him more than any words. The voice outside spoke again, louder, sharper. Time is ending. Give them or you die. Daniel's heart thundered. He thought of the war, of the villages burned, of the children left behind. He remembered standing by while others suffered, too broken to fight anymore. The shame of it still burned in his chest. He could not live through that again. He raised his rifle and shouted through the broken door, "You want them? You'll have to take me first." For a moment there was silence. Then laughter, cold, metallic, and human. So be it. You choose death. The wall shook as something heavy struck outside. The hunters were preparing for a full assault. The mother gasped. Why, you could live. Why fight for us? Daniel met her eyes. His voice was low but steady. Because once I turned away. Once I did nothing. Not this time. Her lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not argue again. She only pressed her child closer, whispering soft words he could not understand. Daniel checked his last bullets. 5. That was all. 5 bullets against an army of machines. His cabin would not hold much longer. He thought fast, scanning the room. He saw the old kerosene lamp on the shelf, half full. He saw the broken table, the loose boards. He saw a chance. Not to win, but to make the hunters pay for every step. He grabbed the lamp, poured some of the fuel across the floorboards, then kicked the broken wood into a rough barrier. His cabin would not be his grave. It would be his weapon. The hunters' shadows moved outside the window. Their glowing eyes burned through the storm. Daniel lit the soaked boards with a piece of the fire. Flames rose, licking the walls. The cabin would not stand long, but it would burn hot enough to make the hunters suffer. The mother's eyes widened. You destroy your home. Daniel gave a bitter smile. It stopped being my home the moment they came. The boy coughed again, weak but alive. The mother pressed a kiss to his forehead. Daniel watched, and something fierce grew in his chest. This was no longer about duty, no longer about war. It was about a promise he had not spoken aloud. a promise to protect no matter the cost. The hunters struck the door again. Wood splintered. Flames spread across the floor. The storm howled like a beast outside. Daniel stood tall, rifle ready, fire reflecting in his eyes. He whispered, not to the hunters, not to himself, but to the child. They'll have to go through me first. And as the door cracked open under the force of iron fists, Daniel knew his choice was final. He would not surrender them. Not tonight. Not ever. The door shattered. A rush of cold air and snow blew into the cabin, carrying with it the shadows of death. The hunters forced their way inside, tall and merciless, their glowing eyes cutting through the smoke and fire. Their metal claws scraped the walls, their heavy boots shook the floor. Daniel fired his rifle. The blast echoed like thunder. The first bullet struck a machine in the chest, sparks flying as it collapsed. He didn't wait. He fired again, hitting another in the head, shattering its skull-like shell. But there were more. Always more. The mother screamed, clutching her child and crawling to the farthest corner. Her eyes glowed faintly again, silver light trembling in her veins, but she was too weak to stand. She could only whisper words Daniel did not understand, rocking the boy as if to keep him calm in hell. Daniel reloaded with shaking hands, his last 3 bullets. He gritted his teeth. Make them count, he fired at the closest hunter. The shot ripped through its neck, sending its body crashing into the burning wood. Flames spread across the floor, lighting the cabin in a storm of orange and red. Smoke thickened, choking the air. The hunters did not stop. One raised its glowing weapon, firing a blue beam that sliced through the ceiling. Wood and snow rained down. Another lunged forward, claw swinging. Daniel ducked, rolled across the floor, and slammed the butt of his rifle into the machine's leg. Sparks burst as the joint cracked, but the force sent Daniel sprawling. His ribs burned. He coughed in the smoke. The machine turned, ready to crush him. And then, light. The mother raised her trembling hand. Silver energy shot from her palm, striking the hunter square in the chest. The machine convulsed, its body tearing apart in a shower of sparks. It collapsed at Daniel's feet. Daniel stared, stunned. She was weak, exhausted, but her power was deadly. She fell back, gasping, nearly fainting. No, more, she whispered. Daniel grabbed a piece of burning wood and swung it at another machine. The fire caught on its wires, melting plastic, filling the air with the stench of burning metal. The hunter screeched, thrashing before falling still, but there was no time to breathe. The armored men entered next, stepping through the broken door. Their weapons glowed with deadly light, their voices cold and sharp. Terminate all resistance. Daniel's chest tightened. He had no bullets left. Only fire, only fury. He snatched the kerosene lamp and hurled it across the room. It shattered on the hunters, flames exploding into the air. Fire swallowed 2 of them, their armor glowing red as they fell. But the others pressed forward, their weapons raised. One beam sliced across the cabin, grazing Daniel's arm. Pain ripped through him, burning deep. He staggered, clutching the wound, but his legs refused to give out. The boy screamed, his small voice sharp above the chaos. The sound struck Daniel harder than any wound. He forced himself to stand, forced himself to fight. He grabbed a broken chair leg, swung it with all his strength at a hunter's helmet. The glass cracked, the figure stumbled. Daniel drove the wood again and again until the helmet shattered, revealing nothing human inside, only pale flesh and wires. The creature hissed and fell. Daniel's lungs burned, his vision blurred. The fire was spreading fast now, crawling up the walls, licking at the roof. The cabin would not last. He turned to the mother. "We have to move now!" She shook her head weakly. They wait outside. Daniel knew she was right. The hunters would surround them. Running out the front was suicide. But staying here meant death too. His mind raced. The back wall. The old root cellar. A tunnel he had once dug to store supplies, maybe. Just maybe. He rushed to the corner, kicking away broken wood and ashes until he found the trapdoor. He pulled it open. Cold air rose from the dark hole below. "Here," he shouted. The mother staggered to her feet, holding the child tight. Daniel helped her toward the opening, shielding her with his body as another beam cut past. Sparks rained down his back. "Go," he barked. She slid into the darkness below, cradling the boy. Daniel turned to cover them. His chest heaved, his muscles screamed, but he stood his ground. The last hunter stepped through the fire, weapon glowing. Daniel charged. He slammed into the machine, forcing it back into the flames. The heat burned his skin, but he did not let go. The hunter struggled, claws tearing into his coat. Daniel roared, pushing harder until the machine toppled into the burning wreckage. Its body melted with the cabin itself. Daniel stumbled back, coughing, nearly blind from the smoke. He dropped into the cellar, pulling the trapdoor shut above him. The cabin above roared like a beast as it collapsed, flames devouring everything. The tunnel was narrow, filled with dirt and cold. The mother knelt there, clutching her child, eyes wide with fear and awe. She looked at Daniel, her voice trembling. "You fight for us, why?" Daniel sank against the wall, every breath agony. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them to meet her gaze. "Because someone has to," he whispered. Above them, the cabin crashed down, sending fire and smoke into the storm. The hunters screamed outside, their voices fading into the wind. But the fight was not over. Not yet. Daniel knew they would return. They always did, and next time, there might be no escape. The tunnel smelled of dirt and damp roots. Cold air drifted through cracks in the earth, mixing with the faint smoke that still seeped down from the burning cabin above. Daniel sat against the wall, his chest heaving, his arm wrapped in blood-stained cloth. The alien mother sat across from him, her child curled against her chest. The boy slept now, his silver eyes closed, his breathing soft but steady. She stroked his small head gently, humming a low sound in her strange tongue. For the first time since the night began, there was silence. No pounding on the door, no mechanical voices, only the storm outside and the faint crackle of the fire eating what was left of Daniel's home. Daniel finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "They won't stop, will they?" The mother looked up. Her black eyes glistened in the dim light. She shook her head slowly. "No, they never stop until—" "Nothing left," Daniel frowned. "Why? What are you to them?" Her lips trembled. She pressed the boy tighter against her chest, as if the question itself was dangerous. For a long time she said nothing. Then in a voice soft but steady she spoke. "We were many once. A people, strong. We lived under the stars, free. We sang, we built, we loved. Then they came. Men in armor, machines without heart. They said we were property. They said we must serve." Her voice broke, but she forced the words out. "We became slaves, worked until bones broke, obeyed until spirit died. Many gave up. Many died, but some still ran." Daniel's jaw tightened. He remembered camps from the war. He remembered prisoners with the same empty eyes. His stomach twisted. The mother touched the boy's face. "I ran for him. He is last of bloodline. My people are broken, scattered, but he carries what we were. Hunters know. That is why they chase. If they kill him, hope ends." Daniel stared at the child. The boy shifted in sleep, his silver eyes flickering beneath closed lids, glowing faintly. Hope. That small body carried the last spark of a whole people. He rubbed a hand over his face. "So they'll burn the world just to kill one child?" The mother nodded. "Yes, because one child can grow. One child can rise. One child can bring back what they fear." Daniel felt the weight of it pressing down on him. His cabin, his solitude, his life of hiding, it was gone. All of it had burned the moment he chose to shelter them. He was no longer just a man running from his past. He was standing between death and survival for an entire race. The storm outside roared. For a moment Daniel thought he heard voices again, faint, distant, like the hunters still searching. He tensed, gripping the rifle with his good arm, though there were no bullets left. The mother noticed. "They will search, always. We must move." "Never stay." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Move where?" "This land is crawling with them. My cabin's gone. I have nothing left." Her eyes softened. "You have us." The words struck him harder than any wound. He looked away, his throat tight. He had not had us in years. Not since his family was taken by war. The thought of belonging again terrified him, yet warmed something deep inside. The boy stirred, opening his silver eyes. He looked around the tunnel, then at Daniel. Slowly, with a weak hand, the boy reached out. His small fingers brushed Daniel's arm. Daniel froze. The child's touch was warm, soft, trusting. A connection he did not expect. His chest tightened, and for the first time in years his heart felt heavy in a different way, not from sorrow, but from something he had buried long ago. Care. The mother whispered. "He trusts you more than anyone." Daniel met her gaze. "Then I can't let him down." The storm above eased, the wind less violent. But the danger was not gone. The hunters would return, and Daniel knew it. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the silence. His mind replayed the past, his failures, his regrets, the lives he could not save. But here, in this tunnel, in the dirt and cold, he found a new reason. Not survival. Not escape. Purpose. He opened his eyes again. Tell me everything. I need to know who they are, what they want, and how we stop them. The mother hesitated. Stop them? No, we cannot. Too strong. Daniel's voice hardened. Then we fight until they fall. Or until we do. Her eyes widened slightly. She studied him in silence, then lowered her head. You are different. Not like them, maybe. Maybe you are answer we waited for. Daniel didn't reply. He only checked the tunnel, making sure it stretched far enough to escape into the forest. His body ached, his arm throbbed, but his spirit was unbroken. The boy yawned, closing his eyes again. The mother kissed his forehead gently, then whispered to Daniel, We call him Saren. It means light in the dark. Daniel looked at the child one last time before standing. Light in the dark. The word stayed in his mind, strong and heavy. Above them, faint metallic voices echoed through the storm. The hunters were still searching. The mother shivered. They come again. Daniel gripped his empty rifle, his jaw firm. Let them. Next time, we'll be ready. And in that cold tunnel, with nothing but shadows and fear around them, a new bond was formed between a broken man, a hunted mother, and a child who carried the last light of a dying world. The tunnel opened into the forest. Daniel pushed aside frozen roots and crawled out first, his rifle clutched tight though it held no bullets. The storm had eased, but the night was still sharp and cold, the snow glowing faintly under the moon. He reached down and pulled the mother up. She carried the boy close, her steps heavy but determined. They had survived the fire. They had survived the night so far. But Daniel knew survival was only borrowed time. The forest was silent, too silent. No birds, no wind through the trees. Only the faint crunch of snow beneath their feet. It was the kind of silence that made the skin crawl. They are near, the mother whispered. Daniel nodded. He felt it too. The hunters were not gone. They were waiting, tightening the circle, pushing them toward the trap. He led them through the trees, keeping low, moving fast. His chest burned with every step, his wounded arm heavy at his side. The mother stumbled but never let go of the child. The boy clung to her, his silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Then Daniel heard it. The hum. Low, steady, mechanical. The forest lit up with beams of cold light. Dozens of glowing eyes appeared between the trees. Machines, armored men, hunters, all around them. They were surrounded. The mother gasped, pulling the child closer. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle, though it was useless now. His heart pounded, his mind raced. The metallic voice boomed through the trees. End of flight. Surrender, fugitives. Final warning. The mother looked at Daniel. Her lips trembled. Take him, run, leave me. Daniel shook his head fiercely. No, you must, she whispered, tears in her eyes. He is hope. I am nothing. Save him. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had been alone for years, carrying only his own pain. But now he had something more, something he never thought he'd have again. He could not throw it away. He looked at her, voice low and steady. We all go, or none. The hunter stepped forward. Weapons hummed with deadly light. Daniel raised his rifle anyway, ready to face them with nothing but rage and resolve. But then, something changed. The boy stirred in his mother's arms. His silver eyes opened wide, glowing brighter than ever before. He looked at Daniel, then at the hunters. His small hand stretched out. The air shifted. A wave of silver light burst from the child, rolling through the forest like a silent storm. The hunters froze mid-step. Their glowing eyes flickered. Machines convulsed, sparks shooting from their limbs. Armored men staggered, weapons dropping from their hands. The forest filled with a sound like glass shattering. One by one, the hunters fell, their bodies collapsing into the snow, their lights dying out. Silence returned. Daniel stood frozen, his mouth dry, his heart hammering. He had seen battlefields. He had seen weapons of war. But he had never seen power like this. The mother wept softly, clutching her son. He awakens, Saren. Light in the dark. The boy leaned against her, his glow fading, exhaustion heavy in his small frame. But he was alive. He had saved them. Daniel lowered his rifle slowly, his body trembling. Around them lay the broken remains of the hunters. For the first time, the night felt still. Safe. The mother looked at Daniel, her eyes full of tears and wonder. Now, you see truth. He is why they hunt. He is why. I beg. Daniel's throat tightened. He remembered her words from that first night. If I warm your bed, will you let us remain? He understood now. It was not about comfort. It was about survival. It was about finding a place where her child could live, where hope could breathe again. He stepped closer, his voice rough but steady. Then you remain. Both of you. As long as I live, no one touches him. The mother's lips trembled. She nodded slowly, tears shining in the moonlight. The boy reached out again, his small hand brushing Daniel's fingers. That single touch sealed something greater than words. A bond, a promise, a family. Daniel looked at the broken machine scattered in the snow, then at the woman and child beside him. He knew the hunters would return. He knew the fight was far from over, but he also knew something had changed inside him. He was no longer a man running from his past. He was no longer just a survivor. That night, everything changed. He had something to fight for again, and he would fight until his last breath.